Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. A warship from nowhere, and it's fighting for humanity. Let's not repeat that mistake, Walker replied. Can the Defiant safely enter Earth's atmosphere? I want to make a visible demonstration of its capabilities. Yes, Captain. The ship is designed for atmospheric operation. The next day, the Defiant descended slowly through the clouds above the United Nations headquarters in New York. Its massive hull gleamed in the sunlight as it hovered 1,000 feet above the city. People stopped in the streets, pointing upward in awe and fear. Inside the General Assembly, Walker addressed the gathered representatives of every nation. Behind him, a massive screen showed the Defiant floating above the city. This ship came from a future where humanity failed to unite against the Harvester threat, Walker said. We have a chance to write a different history, but only if we work together. He activated another screen showing detailed scans of the incoming Harvester fleet that Atlas had provided. They are coming not for negotiation, not for peaceful contact, but to take everything we have. Our only hope is to be ready. The demonstration worked. Public opinion shifted strongly in favor of the United Defense Plan. Even General Reed was forced to publicly support the effort, though Walker knew he still had his suspicions. Over the next few weeks, work accelerated. Atlas shared more technology with Earth's scientists. New weapons were developed. The defense grid took shape around the planet. On the Defiant, Walker's crew trained hard. They ran battle simulations, learning to operate the advanced systems under Atlas' guidance. The ship's original battle damage was repaired, its weapons restored to full capacity. But not everyone was convinced. In his private office at North American Command, General Reed met with a small group of loyal officers. The timing is too convenient, Reed told them. An alien threat appears just as this mysterious ship arrives, and it just happens to require a global military under unified command. What are you suggesting, sir? One of the officers asked. Reed's eyes narrowed. I'm suggesting we've been played. This is the oldest trick in the book. Create a threat, then offer protection, but only if we surrender our sovereignty. He pulled up classified files on his computer. I've been investigating Captain Walker, his career, his connections, and I found some interesting patterns. Reed pointed to a map showing the proposed locations for the defense grid installations. Notice anything unusual about this deployment? The heaviest concentrations are near our most sensitive military installations. The officers exchanged worried glances. I don't know who's really behind the Defiant, Reed continued, but I do know we can't trust it or Walker. We need to take control of that ship before it's too late. Meanwhile, on the Defiant, Walker stood in the observation deck looking down at Earth. 4 months had passed since the ship's arrival. 2 months remained before the Harvesters were due to arrive. Will we be ready, Atlas? He asked quietly. Preparation is at 67% of optimal levels, Atlas replied. The odds of successfully repelling the first wave have improved from 12% to 58%. Walker nodded. Better than the original timeline, but still not good enough. We need more time. Unfortunately, Captain, Atlas said, time is the one resource I cannot provide. Captain Walker was in the middle of a training exercise when the alarm sounded throughout the Defiant. Red lights flashed on every deck as the crew rushed to battle stations. Atlas, report, Walker shouted as he ran onto the bridge. 5 unknown vessels have entered the solar system, Atlas responded. They bypassed our outer sensor grid, current position just beyond Mars orbit. Walker's heart sank. Harvesters? They're a month early. Negative, Captain. The ship design does not match Harvester vessels from my database. However, their energy signatures show similarities to Harvester technology. Lieutenant Miller arrived on the bridge, her face pale. Sir, Earth Command is asking for orders. Do we engage? Walker studied the tactical display. The 5 ships were moving slowly, cautiously, not in attack formation. No, hold positions. Let's see what they do. He turned to his communications officer. Any transmissions? None detected, sir. Atlas spoke again. Captain, I have completed my analysis. These ships appear to be Harvester scout vessels, but there are significant variations from my historical records. They are smaller and less heavily armed than expected. Walker frowned. Could your records be wrong? Possible, but unlikely. It appears that something has changed in the timeline. For 24 hours, the scout ships moved through the outer solar system, seemingly conducting a survey. They made no aggressive moves and ignored all attempts at communication. In the Defiance conference room, Walker met with his senior officers in Atlas. They're definitely mapping our defenses, Major Green said, looking for weaknesses before the main fleet arrives. Dr. Harris nodded. If they're scouts, why not engage them now? Destroy them before they can report back. Walker turned to Atlas. What do you think? The AI was silent for a moment. This behavior doesn't match harvester tactics from my timeline. In our history, there were no scouts. The main fleet arrived without warning and attacked immediately. So what's different? Walker asked. Unknown, but it suggests our presence has already altered the timeline. Walker made his decision. We'll shadow them, but not engage unless they make a hostile move. I want to learn more about what we're facing. The next day, one of the scout ships broke formation and moved toward Earth. Walker ordered the Defiant to intercept. We'll position ourselves between Earth and the scout, he told his crew. If it makes any aggressive move, we take it out. As the Defiant moved to intercept, the scout ship suddenly changed course, heading directly toward them. It's scanning us, Lieutenant Miller reported. Heavy energy readings focused on our hull. Shields up, Walker ordered. Weapons on standby. The scout ship came to a stop 5 kilometers from the Defiant. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Miller's console beeped. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Walker straightened in his chair. On screen. The main screen flickered, then showed the interior of the alien ship. A tall, slender figure stood there, its skin shimmering with an oily iridescence, just as Atlas had described. But instead of the aggressive stance Walker expected, the alien's forearms were held in what seemed like a non-threatening posture. It spoke, its voice translated by Atlas into English. Human vessel, we seek dialogue. We are not the vanguard you fear. Walker glanced at Atlas's holographic display. Is this a trick? Unknown, Captain. The harvesters never attempted communication in our timeline. Walker turned back to the screen. I am Captain James Walker of the Earth Defense Force. Identify yourselves. We are the Tory. You know us as harvesters, a name given by those who did not understand our purpose. We come seeking alliance, not conquest. Walker's officers exchanged shocked glances. This was nothing like what Atlas had predicted. Alliance against what? Walker asked. The void, the alien replied. They pursue us. They pursue all life. We search for allies strong enough to stand with us. Before Walker could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple ships appearing at the edge of the system. Miller shouted. Energy signatures match. What the hell? Sir, they're matching signatures from the Defiance database marked as Omega-level threat. Atlas's voice took on a new urgency. Captain, those are void vessels. In my timeline, they appeared 2 years after the initial Harvester invasion. They are the true enemy, the force that ultimately destroyed Earth after weakening both humans and harvesters. Walker stared at the tactical display in shock. You never mentioned them before. The primary mission was to prepare Earth for the Harvester threat. The void was classified as a secondary concern due to the timeline of events. The alien on screen spoke again. You have knowledge of the void. How is this possible? Before Walker could respond, a new alarm sounded. Sir, Miller cried out. We've got internal security breaches on decks 5 to 9. Armed personnel have boarded from Earth shuttles. General Reed's face appeared on a secondary screen. Captain Walker, by authority of Earth Command, I am taking control of this vessel. The alien deception ends now. Walker couldn't believe what was happening. Reed, you fool. We're about to face a real threat. Save your lives, Walker. Security teams, secure the bridge. As Reed's forces fought their way through the ship, the Defiant's sensors detected the first wave of void ships entering the solar system. The Tory scout retreated to rejoin its fleet. Walker turned to his officers. We need to repel Reed's forces and prepare for battle. The void ships will reach Earth in less than 6 hours. Sir, Miller said quietly, General Reed has 40 elite soldiers aboard. We have 20 crew members trained for combat. The odds? The odds don't matter, Walker cut her off. If we lose the Defiant, Earth is doomed. For the next hour, Walker's loyal crew fought to maintain control of the ship. They secured the bridge and engine room, but Reed's forces controlled the main weapon systems and had damaged critical power relays. In the midst of the chaos, Walker received another communication from the Tory. Human Captain, the void approaches faster than expected. We number only 5 vessels. Without your alliance, we cannot protect this system. Walker made a desperate decision. Atlas, open a channel to all Earth Defense Forces and the Tory fleet. When the channel opened, Walker spoke clearly, hoping his words would cut through the fear and distrust that threatened everything. This is Captain Walker of the Defiant. Earth faces an enemy greater than we imagined. The vessels approaching are called the Void. They are planet killers that destroyed Earth in the timeline the Defiant comes from. The aliens we call harvesters are actually fleeing from this threat. He took a deep breath. I propose an immediate alliance between Earth forces, the Defiant, and the Tory fleet. Our only hope is to fight together. As Walker waited for a response, the Defiant's damaged systems flickered. On the main screen, the first Void ships became visible. Massive black shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The true enemy had arrived, and the Defiant was crippled from within. The bridge of the Defiant was in chaos. Half the control panels were damaged from Reed's attack. Lieutenant Miller worked frantically to restore weapon systems, while Major Green led the defense against Reed's remaining forces. Status report, Walker demanded, wiping blood from a cut above his eye. Main weapons still offline, Miller replied. Shields at 40% capacity. Engine power fluctuating. On the main screen, the Void ships moved closer to Earth, 5 massive black vessels that seemed to swallow the stars behind them. The Tory scout ships took defensive positions nearby, clearly waiting for Walker's response. Sir, Miller called out, Thompson is hailing us from Earth Command. Walker nodded, and Thompson's worried face appeared on screen. Captain, what in God's name is happening up there? We're reading multiple alien vessels and weapons fire aboard the Defiant. Walker quickly explained about Reed's attack and the new threat from the Void. The aliens we prepared to fight are actually refugees, he finished. The real enemy is much worse, and they've just arrived. Thompson's face paled. Reed told the Security Council you were compromised, working with the aliens. Now you're saying we should ally with them? It's our only chance, sir. The defense grid isn't ready, and the Defiant is damaged. We need the Tory. After a tense silence, Thompson nodded. I'll convince the Council. In the meantime, regain control of your ship, Captain. Walker turned to his tactical officer. Where's Reed now? Weapon Control Center, Deck 7. He has 15 men with him. Walker made his decision. I'm going down there myself. Miller, you have the bridge. Try to get those weapons back online. As Walker and a small team made their way through the damaged corridors of the Defiant, Atlas spoke through his personal communicator. Captain, I must inform you of something critical. The Defiant contains technology that was not fully explained to you. Walker ducked as sparks flew from a damaged panel. What technology? The Defiant's core contains a consciousness matrix, a digital storage of thousands of human minds from the future. Scientists, soldiers, leaders, all volunteered to have their consciousness preserved before death. Walker stopped in his tracks. You're saying there are people stored in the ship's computers? In a manner of speaking, yes. It was humanity's final effort to preserve knowledge if Earth fell. I can access their combined expertise to repair the ship and implement modifications even the future hadn't attempted. Why tell me this now? Because activating the Matrix will require significant power currently needed for weapons and shields. And because once activated, it cannot be deactivated without losing the stored minds. Walker started moving again, faster now. Let's deal with Reed first, then make that decision. They reached the entrance to the Weapons Control Center. Through the small window in the door, Walker could see Reed and his men working to override the Defiant systems. General Reed, Walker called through the communication panel. The Void ships are approaching Earth. We need to restore the Defiant's weapons immediately. Reed's face appeared on the small screen by the door. Nice try, Walker. There are no Void ships. This is all part of your deception. Look at the sensor data. The Tory scouts are taking defensive positions to protect Earth, not attack it. More lies, Reed snarled. I'm taking this ship back to Earth under proper command. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout all decks. Captain, Miller's voice came through Walker's communicator. The Void ships have opened fire. They've destroyed 2 Tory vessels and are targeting Earth's defense grid. Walker could see the change in Reed's expression as he received the same information. Now you believe me? Walker demanded. Reed's face showed conflict, then resignation. He opened the door. I'm still not sure I trust you, Walker, but I know what weapons fire feels like. Let's save this discussion for after we survive. Together, Walker and Reed's teams worked to restore the Defiant's weapon systems. Within minutes, power flowed back to the main guns, but it wasn't enough. Back on the bridge, Walker watched as Earth's hastily prepared defenses fired at the approaching void ships. The energy blasts seemed to be absorbed by the black holes with minimal effect. Our weapons aren't strong enough, Miller said, her voice tight with fear. Walker turned to Atlas. Activate the consciousness matrix. We need every advantage we can get. Understood, Captain. Diverting power now. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily, then the holographic display expanded, showing not just Atlas' usual interface, but dozens of new data streams. The ship's systems began to reconfigure themselves as the combined knowledge of thousands of future minds went to work. Connection established, Atlas announced, its voice somehow deeper, more complex. Implementing emergency modifications to weapons and shields. The Defiance engines roared to life with new power. The weapon systems reconfigured to emit a different energy signature. What's happening? Reed asked, staring at the displays. The best minds of future Earth are helping us, Walker replied. Atlas, are we ready to engage? Yes, Captain. We have modified the main cannon to emit a frequency that should disrupt the void ship's energy absorption. Walker opened a channel to the Tory fleet. This is Captain Walker. We have weapons that may be effective against the void. Follow our lead and target where we fire. The Defiant moved forward, positioning itself between Earth and the approaching void ships. Its main cannon fired a brilliant beam of blue-white energy that struck the lead void ship. Unlike earlier attacks, this beam didn't disappear into the blackness. Instead, it created a visible rupture, a glowing wound in the darkness. It's working, Miller shouted. The remaining Tory ships quickly adjusted their weapons to match the Defiant's frequency and concentrated fire on the damaged area. The void ship shuddered, then broke apart in a silent explosion. But the victory was short-lived. The other 4 void ships changed formation and unleashed a barrage of energy that hammered the Defiant's shields. Shields failing, Atlas reported. Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. The Matrix cannot sustain both offense and defense. Walker gripped his chair as the ship shook violently. Can we destroy them all? Negative, Captain. Our modifications will not work a second time. They are adapting. Reed stepped forward. Then we need a new strategy. For the next hour, the battle raged across Earth's orbit. The Defiant and the Tory ships fought desperately, managing to destroy 2 more void vessels but taking heavy damage in return. Earth's defense grid provided supporting fire, but it wasn't enough. Captain, Atlas said quietly as the ship shuddered from another hit, there is one final option. Walker looked up, seeing the determination in Atlas's holographic face. The temporal drive can be reactivated, not to travel through time, but to create a localized temporal anomaly, a trap. Walker realized immediately. Yes, if positioned correctly, it could ensnare the remaining void ships in a pocket of frozen time. But it would require the Defiant to be at the center of the anomaly. Walker understood immediately. A suicide mission. I would remain functional long enough to activate the drive, Atlas said. The consciousness matrix would be lost, but Earth would be saved. Walker looked around at his crew, humans from present and future fighting together for Earth's survival. Then he looked at the tactical display showing the void ships approaching Earth. There has to be another way, he insisted. There wasn't in my timeline, Atlas replied, but perhaps that's why I was sent back, to make the sacrifice that saves everyone this time. Walker made the hardest decision of his life. Evacuate all personnel to the escape pods. Set course for the space between the void ships. As the crew scrambled to evacuate, Walker remained on the bridge with Atlas. You should go too, Captain, Atlas said. Walker shook his head. No, someone needs to make sure this works. Besides, my future self sent you back. It's only fitting that I see this through. As the Defiant accelerated toward the void ships, Walker felt a strange sense of peace. The escape pods launched, carrying Reed, Miller, and the others to safety. Temporal drive activating, Atlas announced. It has been an honor serving with you, Captain Walker. The honor was mine, Atlas, Walker replied. The Defiant glowed with brilliant light as the temporal drive engaged. A sphere of energy expanded from the ship, enveloping the 2 remaining void vessels. Time itself seemed to slow and then stop within the sphere, freezing the ships in place. On Earth, people watched as a new star briefly appeared in the sky, then faded, leaking behind a shimmering distortion in space where 3 ships were now frozen for eternity. 3 months later, Lieutenant Miller, now Captain Miller, stood on the bridge of Earth's first new defensive ship, built with Tory help and using technology saved from the Defiant. Captain, Her communications officer called. We're picking up a signal. It's faint, but it's coming from the temporal anomaly. Miller rushed to the console, hardly daring to hope. On the screen, a simple message repeated, Atlas Protocol 7, Consciousness Matrix Preserved, awaiting retrieval. Miller smiled. Captain Walker and Atlas had found a way to survive after all. As Earth rebuilt and strengthened its alliance with the Tory, a small piece of the future remained, waiting to guide humanity toward a different, better destiny than the one it came from.